It is said that beneath a range of cloud-crowned peaks, where the snow glows faintly like the breath of sleeping spirits, there lies a library with no books, only chambers shaped to remember sound. In forgotten seasons, pilgrims walked there with their voices wrapped in shawls, for they believed that words spoken in the open air were scattered and lost. But words spoken underground, within those spiraled halls, were gathered and kept, gently as a mother keeps the first cry of a child. Some called it the Echo Library. Others would not name it at all. The way begins at a cleft in the mountain, narrow as a sigh. A lantern is lit, not to conquer the dark, but to cradle it. The flame is small, honey-colored, moving like a slow heartbeat in a ribcage of rock. Steps descend along a stair of polished stone, worn by centuries of cautious feet. Down here, the air is colder but alive. A soft hush marked by the faintest tremble, as if the mountain itself is breathing. The first chamber opens like a cup held to a river. A single whisper is given to the air. It does not fade. It circles the walls, growing tender, returning to the ear as if it has learned to love the one who spoke it. It is said the old scholars designed these rooms with curved ribs and hidden hollows, so that sound would walk and then sit, would wander and then kneel. Here, ideas did not pass by like strangers in a crowded street. They stayed, listening to their own echoes, gathering patience. Deeper still, inscriptions appear, not words, but lines that spiral like shells, like galaxies folded small enough to hold in the hand. Beneath the silence, one hears a braided murmur, the residue of vanished voices, prayers, questions, the names of the moon in forgotten tongues. Some believe these spirals are diagrams of breath, sacred maps of how thought travels from mouth to memory. Others say they are nothing more than the art of a people who wish to leave no doctrines behind, only patterns for the wind to wear. In the second chamber, the lantern trembles. The ceiling drops and the floor rises, closing the body gently in a stone embrace. Here, listeners once practiced stillness until stillness let them in. A ritual is remembered. One sits, palms open, eyes lowered to the dust. A single word is spoken, not loudly, not proudly, then released, like a moth at twilight. The word returns, altered. It carries the mountain's mildness, the cave's patience, the hush of 1,000 nights. And the speaker learns what the sky priests once knew above the deserts. That truth is not a flame but a resonance, unhurried, oceanic, star-marked by time. Whispers tell us a hidden chamber lies beyond a narrow gate of black stone. Those who enter hear a chorus at once ancient and near, as if every breath ever offered to understanding has settled here like snow that never melts. The chorus is not a song. It is a low, woven hum, the sound of a question that has forgiven itself for not becoming an answer. Scholars came with scrolls. They left with empty hands and brightened eyes. They recorded nothing, for ink would weigh down what the air could carry lightly. Beneath the silence of the deepest hall, the mountain keeps a single ritual. One stands on a circle of dark rock, veined like the palm of an elder. One speaks a memory not yet understood, a face, a gate, a moonlit road. The echo takes it, softens it, and returns it as a prayer one did not know one knew. It is said that in this place, even grief grows feathers. Even doubt learns to sit without trembling. Where memory fades, the echo library begins. It holds not facts but tenderness. It keeps the shape of a thought without forcing a conclusion. Some believe the builders were monks of a cold sky, others that they were wanderers who learned the secret of caves from rivers moving through stone. No one is certain. Certainty is a loud thing. The library prefers a voice that knows how to lean toward quiet. At last the lantern is closed. The path back opens like a parted veil. A final whisper is offered to the chambers, not to be returned, but to be kept. The listener ascends, thinking of snow and shells, of spirals and breath, of words that found a home where the world could not reach them. At the mouth of the mountain, dawn is pale and tender, marked by the moon's receding silver. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, only to be stumbled upon when a life has learned to listen. Some voices only echo when we are ready to hear them. And in the hush that follows, the mountain exhales, and keeps our smallest truth safe in its deep, stone heart. In forgotten corners of the earth, the wind moves over temples of dust and oceans of sleep. It carries the laughter of the drowned city, the breath of the vanished star, the heartbeat of the mountain that watched the dawn. It remembers because remembering is how the world dreams. And somewhere, far beyond even the farthest cloud, perhaps those same sky priests still stand, whispering into the endless silence, their words traveling on the breath of eternity, returning as wind. For in the end, nothing is ever lost. It merely changes its voice. The traveler bows his head, and the desert exhales. The wind moves on, and the stars, patient, listening, begin to sing. In forgotten corners of the earth, water remembers what land forgets. It is said there is a lake that wears the moon like a crown, and when the night is very still, when even the reeds hold their breath, a city rises on its surface, not in stone, but in light. Arches appear first, pale as the bones of a bird. Then streets unfurl, soft as ribbons laid by invisible hands. Bells sway without sound. Windows bloom with silver, and the shoreline watches, obedient to wonder. The path to that lake is quiet, a track of sand and root and moth-wing dusk. The traveler arrives after sunset, when the world leans into indigo. The water is black and star-specked, a velvet mirror marked by the moon. Old stories say a people once built a city here whose priests counted tides as prayer beads, reading the moon as scripture. Their altars were made of salt and light. Their laws were gentle and slow, like boats moving without oars. They believed that what rises must learn how to bow, and what bows becomes a bridge for souls. Whispers tell us the city of reflection was not drowned by storm or war, but by devotion, that its people offered their streets to the lake the way one gives a beloved a secret name. They believed the moon would keep their memory better than any wall. And so, one night marked by the moon, they lowered their lamps, they closed their doors, they stepped into the silver and did not resist the soft, holy pull. Now the traveler waits with a patience learned from stones. He listens for a bell that cannot ring. He counts the breaths of the night. One for the star to steady, one for the wind to fold, one for the moon to lay its face upon the water. Then a tremor. The lake shivers like a sleeping creature. Light rouses, delicate, deliberate. A bridge appears across the dark, thin as a hair. Then a gate veiled and tender. The city gathers itself from memory, like a story told by the dead in a kind voice. Beneath the silence, meaning blooms. The streets are arranged in spirals, as if the people wish to walk toward the heart and never reach it. Windows are round, marked by lunar sigils. Statues show figures with tilted heads, listening as if the sky is a teacher. The traveler cannot step upon the vision. It is made of water and remembering, but he walks the shoreline as if walking among them. He imagines a marketplace of whispering merchants, scholars trading moon names in exchange for patience, children learning to read the surface of the lake as one reads a palm. Some believe a bell still rings beneath, so slow that a lifetime is just a single note. Others say if you speak your grief here, the water takes it in and returns it as a quieter tide. The traveler lowers his voice to the reeds. He offers a small sorrow, one with no words, just wait. The water accepts it. The city brightens, just for a breath, then dims again as all holy things do, to protect the eyes. Where memory fades, superstition grows, but here superstition feels like courtesy. The traveler uncovers an old scroll wrapped in oilcloth, found years ago in a market that smelled of rain. On it, a diagram of lunar nights and a single phrase, marked by the moon. He traces the ink with a finger and thinks of doorways that only open when a certain silver touches them. Perhaps the city of reflection is a doorway to the kindness of forgetting, a place where ruins are not devoured, only quieted. Hours pass like soft birds. The moon climbs, then sighs, then begins to lower its silver face. With it, the city loosens its hold on this world. The arch is thin. The streets fold like silk. The gate wavers like the edge of a dream upon waking. The traveler holds his breath, as one does at the end of a prayer. Some say the people who built the city still walk there, beneath the surface, barefoot on light. Others say the city is only the lake remembering a beloved shape. The truth is shy. Perhaps it was never meant to be known. At last, only a single ripple remains, a small ring widening, carrying a bell's unstruck note toward the dark shores. The traveler listens until even the crickets sound like monks. He leaves a coin on the sand, not payment, but gratitude, and turns away with the lake at his back, the moon receding, the city folded into water's long, gentle memory. And in that quiet, where the world feels veiled and tender, the thought arrives without edges. Some sanctuaries do not stand, they float. Some cities do not fall, they are kept. It begins with a map found in a chest that smelled of cedar and old rain. The parchment is soft as the inside of a wrist, its surface veiled by a powdery sheen that wakes beneath starlight. By day, it is only a tangle of faded lines, hesitant coasts, and rivers drawn like threads. But it is said that at night, when candles are extinguished and windows are open to the celestial, the map looks back at the sky and remembers what it once knew. The traveler unrolls it on a table of dark wood. The room is quiet. A bowl of salt, a feather, a small stone marked with a spiral. Outside, the moon leans against the world. He waits. He does not light a flame. Slowly, as if coaxed by breath, the map begins to deepen in color. Shores grow a little bolder. Rivers turn glassy. Then something stranger. Across its surface, patterns of light awaken, tiny and distant, as though a net of stars has settled gently upon the skin. Whispers tell us this map was drawn by a night astronomer, one who believed that the sky and the earth mirror each other like lovers passing messages through a thin wall. He refused to name these drawings constellations, for names turn living shapes into statues. He called them pathways, routes for the soul to travel between the dust and the heavens, between the crumbled and the ever-unfolding. On the map, certain stars correspond not to mountains or bays, but to questions. A curve of light opens toward the unknown like a palm. A cluster of tiny sparks encircles a blank space, a sacred absence where a vanished star should be. The traveler traces that absence with his fingertip. The parchment answers with a faint warmth, like a creature waking. It is said the map remembers hands and it rewards the patient. The room grows oceanic, the walls falling back, the ceiling dissolving into indigo. The traveler feels himself standing between two mirrors, the earth's shadowed map below and the sky's star-marked map above. And for a moment, the two tilt toward one another, as if they will touch. Symbols emerge in the margins. A simple gate, a spiral, a cup, an eye closed in sleep. These are not instructions so much as gentle invitations. He recalls a line from a forgotten sage. Do not walk a map as a soldier walks a road. Walk it as a prayer walks the tongue. And so he does. He follows the faint line that leads from a desert marked with altars to a lake that wears the moon, then upward to a cluster of stars that look like a hand releasing a secret. With each slow breath, the paper seems to soften, edges rippling as if laid upon a shallow tide. Some believe such maps are not meant to guide footsteps, but attention. Where we look with wonder, the world grows porous. Doors appear that were always there. The traveler feels the boundary between ink and night blur. He thinks of the old teaching, as above, so within. Perhaps the heavens do not wish to be reached, only mirrored. Perhaps the map is a ceremony in which the mind learns to see as the sky sees, with patience, with distance, with love for small lights in a vast dark. Beneath the silence, the map exhales a final image, a path that ends not at a mountain or a shore, but in a circle drawn with a shaking hand. Inside the circle, nothing, a veiled center, a room with its door open and no walls. It is the same absence the sky priests once sang to the missing star, the listening dark. The traveler understands then that the map is not incomplete. It is reverent. It leaves space for what cannot be charted because it does not wish to be owned. The night leans closer. The stars above shift, or perhaps the eyes soften enough to notice they were never still. The map's lights dim like embers deciding to rest. The traveler rolls the parchment slowly, as one would wrap an infant, and ties it with a thin thread. He places it back into its cedar cradle, with the feather and the stone and the bowl of salt to keep it company. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, only to be kept for a while and then given to another who knows how to look without grasping. Marked by the moon, the window gathers a pale halo. The room returns to itself, wood and shadow, dust and breath. And somewhere between the table and the sky, a path remains unwalked and yet complete, a quiet arch through which thought may pass when it has put down its need to arrive. Some maps measure the world. Some measure our willingness to surrender. This one dreams, and in dreaming, teaches the hand to draw not the way a ruler rules, but the way starlight touches water. Lightly, lovingly, and gone. It is said that on a high, wind-marked plateau, where the sky travels close to the earth and the clouds move like quiet caravans, there stands a circle of black stones that sing, not with notes as a throat would sing, but with the breath of the world itself. A low, trembling hymn that rises when the wind remembers its path. Whispers tell us the sky priests climbed here after nights spent with maps and mirrors, listening for a voice that did not come from the mouth. They called the circle a choir, though none among them claimed to be its master. The traveler arrives at dusk, the hour when the light loosens and the air grows tender. The plateau is bare except for the stones. Tall, veiled shapes, each faced with carvings so shallow they seem to hide from the eye. He walks the inner ring, counting without numbers, tasting dust on the breath. When the wind first threads the circle, it is barely a thought, a hush that brushes the ear and vanishes. Then the tone gathers. One stone voices a tone like distant thunder beneath water. Another answers in a thinner line, as if a reed were called to speak. Soon the air is woven. Low, high, near, far. A slow loom of sound. Some believe the stones were tuned by hands that knew rock the way a healer knows pulse. Others say they were not carved at all, but found, that they were brought up from the earth where the planet keeps its oldest notes. The traveler lays his palm on one stone and feels a faint vibration, the way a sleeping cat hums against a ribcage. Beneath the silence, the plateau seems to breathe through the choir. This is not music to stir the feet. It is a measured resonance, oceanic and star-marked, designed to still the blood until the body remembers its softer clock. The sky priests, it is said, would enter the ring barefoot, circling sunwise with their hands open, carrying nothing but a thread of smoke. They would speak no words. Their ritual was listening. When the tones aligned, they lowered their heads and memory. Not their own, not any single life's, would move through them like a tide. Some returned with simple changes. Quieter eyes, calmer mouths. Some never returned, choosing to stay and keep the wind company through winter. The traveler stands at the center and turns, very slowly, as if facing the stones in greeting, as one greets old friends after a long absence. Certain combinations of wind and angle yield chords that feel like doors. He steps toward one door and hears a deeper tone open beneath it, like a cavern under a river. He steps away and it fades. There is no system to master. There is only attention. The stones seem to teach this gently. Do not force. Hold your breath as if you are carrying water in your hands. Let the air do the speaking. In the fading light, he notices thin lines engraved around the bases. Spirals, cups, waves, a simple gate. These symbols repeat the alphabet of the map that dreamed of the heavens, the same quiet language that links desert to lake, star to stone. It is as if the world writes with itself, leaving the same signatures wherever wonder has once been. Marked by the moon, the first star appears. The wind turns colder, and the choir gathers into a single, round tone that seems to come from below the feet. For a moment it swells, becomes almost visible, a shimmer in the air like heat over a road. The traveler closes his eyes and feels the sound enter him, not as meaning, but as mercy. Some say the stones speak of a vanished star. Others say they are the voices of the plateau's extinct rivers, still moving in their beds but made of air. The truth keeps its veil. The sound diminishes. The wind loosens its careful braids and wanders away toward the dark edge of the world. The stones remain as they were, black, patient, unreadable. Perhaps it was never meant to be decoded. Perhaps the choir exists to tune the listening, not to deliver a hymn. The traveler leaves the circle without turning his back, walking backward into the dusk, as one departs a sanctuary. When the last vibration slips from the ear, a softer silence takes its place, like a hand laid over a racing heart. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. The stones, remembering nothing and everything, keep their vigil in the night, and the wind, somewhere beyond the ridge, tries on a new name. In forgotten reaches of the desert there is a rumor of a temple that is not built but borrowed. Walls lifted from the air by moonlight, corridors shaped by wind as it turns upon itself in slow ceremony. It appears, they say, on nights when the stars gather into a particular hush, marked by the moon's sober gaze. By dawn it is gone, returned to grains, leaving only a faint geometry pressed upon the sand. The traveler finds the place not by direction but by the feeling that something is about to arrive. The sky is a shallow bowl of silver. The dunes are sleeping animals. He waits on a flat of hard-packed earth. First only a drift, then lines sharpen, edges rise, columns of dust hold like breath caught in the chest. An entrance forms, a dark, simple mouth. The temple stands, not grand, not proud, but present. He steps inside. There are no torches, no carvings, only shade and the mild perfume of cooled sand. Every passage is a slow curve, as if the building were shaped by the palm of an elder smoothing a cloth. The floor sifts softly beneath the feet. With each step, the air gathers and releases, a long exhale that seems to come from the earth below. The traveler understands the first rule: move as the temple moves. When he speeds, the walls loosen and begin to fall. When he stills, they hold again, patient as a listening friend. Whispers tell us the sky priests came here to unlearn the language of edges. Their rites were simple: a bowl, a feather, a breath held to the count of 7 stars. They believed that if a prayer could remain light enough, the temple would carry it further than any stone sanctuary could bear. They taught that dust is not ruin but promise. Every wall we love must someday become air in order to be everywhere. In the central chamber, a shallow dome lifts, its curve so subtle it feels remembered rather than seen. Symbols trace the perimeter: echo, gate, spiral, cup, the same quiet alphabet that visited the choir of stones. A single shaft of moonlight descends where the dome opens to the night. The light is not a blade. It is a slow, falling breath. The traveler sits on his heels and watches the dust-laden beam show what the air already knows. Every motion leaves a soft writing. His own breath becomes visible, a gentle ribbon that curls and vanishes. It is said the temple keeps a ritual of release. One by one, pilgrims would bring the names of things they clutched, griefs, certainties, maps with too many roads. They would speak each name into their hands, then open their fingers within the falling silver, watching the letters dissolve into nothing the eye can measure. Where memory fades, mercy begins. An older voice once murmured here. The traveler, keeping the gentlest pace, lifts a small stone from the floor. He thinks of a question too heavy to carry across a lifetime. He gives it to the light. The stone warms, then cools, a tiny weather moving through it and, somehow, through him. The temple does not answer. It eases. It loosens the grip of the mind's fist. In one side passage, the walls narrow to a throat. The sound there is a lullaby of sand rubbing sand. In another, the path opens to a courtyard where nothing grows, yet everything rests. The air is full of the sense that many have stood here without leaving their names. Some believe the temple is the breath of the desert, made visible for those who have forgotten how to inhale without fear. Others believe it is a rehearsal for vanishing, a mercy that teaches us the shape of letting go before the last letting go arrives. The traveler, marked by the moon, returns to the entrance as the east begins to pale. Already the lintel is softening, edges loosening, the door forgetting its duty to divide outside from in. He steps back into the open. A small wind slips through, and the corridors release their hold. Columns return to drift, The dome sighs into a slope. The entrance collapses with no sound. In minutes the temple is a hush across the sand. Nothing more. The only evidence is the traveler's breath, slowed to a tender cadence, and the faint imprint of circles on the ground, as if someone traced a spiral with a fingertip and then lifted it into the air. Perhaps it was never meant to be found twice. Perhaps it belongs to those who are willing to arrive without anchors. The sun lifts its first thread of gold. The desert resumes its bright, merciful blankness. And somewhere, beneath the heat that will come, the memory of a room that held only breath continues to widen inside the traveler like a quiet well, where the mountains lean into one another like elders in council. There once stood a monastery that kept a single secret. It was said a star had fallen there, not with fire or noise, but with the hush of a hand closing a door. The monks tended it in a chamber cut from rock, where candles were forbidden and silence wore sandals. They called it the sleeping light. For centuries the valley learned to move around their vow like a river bends around a stone. The traveler reaches the monastery by paths that prefer hooves to wheels. The outer walls are crumbled, veiled in moss. A gate swings without complaint, its wood damp with years. Within the cloister, colonnades hold their shape like memories of a prayer. The air smells of rain and old paper. On the flagstones, faint lines score the stone. A circle within a square, an eye without an iris, a cup. The old alphabet returns, the one that follows him from desert to lake to plateau. The chamber of the star waits behind a door made of iron that has learned to trust. It yields to the traveler's slow hand. Inside, no light, only a listening dark that does not threaten. He stands until his breath becomes part of that dark, until the shape of the room begins to rise gently out of it. A small altar, a basin dry but clean, a low platform where something once rested. Whispers tell us the sleeping light was not a stone but a presence. A softness that glowed without heat, a heart that beat without body. Pilgrims, eyes lowered, would enter one by one and place their palms near it, never upon it. They left warmer than they arrived, more willing to forgive. The monks understood this not as miracle but as etiquette. When a guest visits from the sky, one thanks it by listening well. But light learns to travel. Years passed, then decades. The glow waned, the way a tide withdraws before you realize it is leaving. One dawn the monks entered to find only the shape of brightness left behind, like a print where a body had lain. They did not mourn. They opened the windows of their hearts and wore their brown wool with peace. The monastery emptied slowly afterward, not from despair, but from completion. A task fulfilled lets go of its keeper. The traveler sets his hands on the low platform. It is cool but not indifferent. Beneath the silence there is a tenderness in the stone, as if it remembers being warmed day after day by the nearness of reverent palms. He closes his eyes and imagines the light, not as fire, but as a breathing that gathered and then moved on, the way a migrating flock leaves the air changed by its passing. Perhaps the star did not fall. Perhaps the earth rose to meet it. Perhaps it was never an object at all, but a moment, the world and the heavens bowing to one another and finding their foreheads touched. In a side alcove he finds tools that are not tools. A bowl of salt, a slender brush, a strip of linen. The monk's ritual returns. Cleanse the surface, smooth the dust, lower the eyes, say nothing. He cleans the platform as if making a bed for a guest who may not return, and the act itself becomes the light. Marked by the moon, he feels his chest loosen, the old tightness of knowing becoming a slowly opening gate. Some say the star took on feet and walked out wearing a cloak of rain, and that if you meet a quiet stranger on a narrow path and your grief softens without speaking, you have met it. Others say the sleeping light learned to live in wheat and in the hum of working bees, and that the monastery was only its crib. The traveler leaves the chamber without verdict. In the cloister the wind moves through the arches like a simple hymn. He sits on a stone bench and listens to the valley think. No answers, only reverence. Perhaps it was never meant to be kept. Perhaps it came to teach release, and the monks became its lesson, carrying nothing but the warmth it left in their bones. The traveler rises, bows to the doorway, and descends the path. Behind him, the monastery keeps its gentle ruin, sheltering a room that holds an absence with such care it feels alive. There was once, they say, a city that feared clocks, not out of ignorance but devotion. Its people believed time belonged to light and the bodies that light makes move. So they learned the hours from the posture of shadows, and they built their homes to cradle dusk as one cradles a sleeping child. They called themselves keepers not of time, for time cannot be kept, but of its tenderness. The traveler arrives beneath a sky that refuses to brighten. The sun hangs low and thoughtful, as if considering a second dawn. Streets open like slow rivers between walls washed with the color of almonds. Niches hold small bowls of oil. Over every doorway, a narrow ledge catches the late light and folds it inward. The city is nearly silent, yet nothing feels abandoned. Windows look back without staring. Steps are shallow, encouraging the foot to linger. Whispers tell us their scholars mapped the day by planes of shade. Dawn's thin blades, morning's softened wedges, the solemn rectangles of noon, the long, tender fingers of evening. Festivals were not named by dates but by the angle at which the first shadow crossed the temple's inner court. Children learned to read the time from walls, to tell the difference between a shadow that asks for waiting and one that invites departure. They had a word for the pause when two shadows finally become one. That word has been lost, though the shape remains. In the central square stands a tower without a face. No dial, no hands, only a slender spire and a clean skin of stone. Around it, the paving is set with pale tiles that darken as the sun leans, forming patterns that the elders could read like scripture. The traveler waits and watches as the city's slow ceremony unfolds. Merchants open doors when a first line touches a certain step. A water cellar begins to pour when the tower's shadow brushes a carved fish. A teacher releases her pupils when the shadow's edge aligns with a crack that looks like a river. No bells ring. The day advances as a quiet tide. Some believe the sky priests visited the city and learned from it to move in accord with impartial light. Others insist the city existed long before priests and will exist after their names have returned to dust. Because wherever there is a surface and a sun, this ancient language speaks. The traveler touches a wall warmed on one side and cool on the other. He places his palm within a shadow that belongs to a fig tree and feels how the leaf writes itself upon the skin with no ink at all. As the afternoon deepens, the city's tone softens further. Laughter, when it comes, is muffled, as if wrapped in cloth. The traveler notices symbols worked into thresholds. Gate, spiral, cup, echo. The same litany that has followed him like a gentle refrain. Here the symbols are scored not deep, but shallow, so that shadow rather than light reads them first. He understands another rule. Meaning arrives with the quiet. Where memory fades, certainty quickens, but here certainty has been taught to sit. The traveler follows the tower's lengthening finger along a corridor that narrows, then opens to a small court. In the court, a pool reflects the spire, and the shadow lays a twin upon the water. 2 times touch. The moment stretches, thin and sweet, like honey. He feels a hush in the bones, the way one feels standing at a threshold too beautiful to cross and too gentle to refuse. When the sun pauses near the rim of the world, the city glows with that soft surrender dusk gives to everything it loves. The tower's shadow reaches the far wall, and for a heartbeat it stops moving. The city grows still, as if the breath of every person has chosen to wait. Some say that in this pause existence rests, that for a fraction of a fraction, the world learns what it is to be held without expectation. Then the shadow moves again, a thread pulled lightly by an unseen hand. Night begins to gather like a shawl over patient shoulders. Perhaps it was never meant to be recorded in calendars. Perhaps the city's true calendar is the human chest, rising and falling in light. The traveler steps away as lamps find their small flames. He leaves with no time kept, only time felt. A tender, veiled hour folded into the heart like a letter that says nothing and means everything. And when he looks back once from the gate, he sees only the afterimage of a shadow teaching a wall how to hold the world without needing to mark it. It is said that at the edge of the known world, where cliffs fall into a sea that never rests, There once stood an observatory built from black glass. Its walls reflected the heavens by night and vanished by dawn. Within it dwelled a solitary keeper, a nameless figure who tended to a mirror so vast and dark it was mistaken by travelers for a pool of oil or a gate into the void. They called it the celestial mirror, and whispered that to gaze into it was to see the universe not as it is, but as it remembers itself. The traveler reaches the place after days of salt wind and silence. The observatory is half ruin, half memory. Pillars of obsidian fractured by time, stairways leading to sky. Inside, the great mirror lies upon the floor, still unbroken, still alive. Its surface is neither smooth nor still. It trembles faintly, as if inhaling through invisible lungs. The air hums with a low, listening sound. Whispers tell us the keeper tended this mirror as one would a living god. Each dusk, they polished it with crushed starlight and seawater, reciting the ancient prayer of reflection. Not for knowledge, but for remembrance. The priests who visited said that on clear nights, the mirror revealed not constellations, but faces, of those who dreamed of the stars, or perhaps of the stars dreaming of them. The traveler kneels beside the mirror. The surface darkens. At first, he sees his reflection, faint, distorted by the slow movement beneath. Then the ripples deepen, and the reflection shifts. The eyes staring back are older. The face is unfamiliar. He leans closer, and the air grows heavy with salt and centuries. Perhaps the mirror does not show what is, but what watches. Perhaps it reflects not the traveler's image, but the universe's memory of him, the brief flicker of a soul passing through time's great lantern. He reaches out, and his fingertip meets not resistance but warmth. Light spreads in slow veins beneath the glass, forming a spiral, a gate, an echo of the symbols seen in the altars, the choir, the temple. Everything is connected, drawn from one quiet alphabet carved into the fabric of existence. Some believe the keeper vanished into the mirror, offering their reflection as payment for all they had seen. Others say the mirror was not an object, but a question, a riddle placed between cosmos and clay. What is the difference between seeing and being seen? The traveler withdraws his hand. The surface stills. The hum fades. And as he stands, the mirror once again becomes an unbroken dark, absorbing the stars above and the thoughts below. Perhaps the keeper still watches, tending from the other side. Perhaps the mirror never reflected the sky, but the soul of those who dared to look too long. Some doors, after all, open inward, far beyond any road, where the land dissolves into salt and silence, lies a crater vast enough to cradle the moon. Locals call it the hollow star, for it is said that once, a star fell here, not burning but hollow, leaving only its shape pressed into the earth like a celestial fingerprint. The traveler approaches at twilight, when the air itself seems to hesitate. The crater glows faintly under a veil of dust, its rim like a halo. A narrow procession of figures moves across the plain. Pilgrims carrying lanterns made of bone and glass, their flames trembling like the souls of moths. They walk barefoot, slow, reverent. Each step is a vow. Whispers tell us that in forgotten ages, people came from distant kingdoms to this place, believing the crater to be the breath of creation, the moment where the heavens once exhaled the world. They believed that to reach the center was to hear the universe speak before language, before sound. The traveler joins them. Together they descend, the wind wrapping around their shoulders like cloth. At intervals they pause, kneel, and press their palms to the earth, listening. Nothing, only a low, patient hum, so deep it might be the sound of their own hearts. At the center lies a depression filled with pale dust that glows even in darkness. No object rests there, no stone, no relic, just a stillness that seems older than thought. The leader of the pilgrims, a woman with a voice soft as rain, whispers. It was not a star that fell, it was silence itself. They lower their lanterns, and the light folds inward, merging with the faint luminescence of the ground. The traveler feels a pressure behind his ribs, not pain but gravity, a pull toward stillness, a yearning to dissolve into that quiet. It is said that some who come here never return. They do not die. They simply stay, merging with the crater's hum, becoming part of the slow song the earth sings to the sky. The hollow star is not a place of ending, but of pause, a reminder that even light, after traveling through eternity, longs to rest. At dawn, the pilgrims depart in silence, their lanterns unlit. The traveler remains a while longer, standing at the edge. The wind moves gently, carrying a single, low tone across the plain. Perhaps the star was never hollow. Perhaps it was filled with everything we cannot name. On a mountain that pierces the morning like a blade through silk, there stands an observatory built not to study the stars, but to watch the birth of light itself. Its corridors are lined with mirrors of bronze and glass, angled so that the first rays of every dawn pour through like a river of gold, flooding the chamber with the memory of beginnings. It is said that its builders, keepers of the eternal East, sought to trap the moment of creation, to understand the instant when darkness becomes day. They believed that if they could hold that light just long enough, they might touch the rhythm of the divine heartbeat itself. The traveler climbs as the night exhales its last breath. The stairs are steep, carved into the spine of the mountain. He enters as the first hint of amber touches the horizon. Inside, everything is poised, vast lenses, shattered gears, a dais waiting for light. The air smells faintly of smoke and sun. When the first beam strikes, the observatory awakens. Gold flows down the mirrors, spilling across the floor, illuminating forgotten inscriptions, spirals, cups, echoes. The same symbols always returning, as if the universe signs its letters the same way in every language. The traveler stands in the glow, and for a moment the air seems alive, not shining, but breathing. The light moves slowly through the halls, touching every surface once, as if blessing them, before slipping away toward the western windows. It is said the builders grew old waiting for the day the light would stop, frozen in its passage, eternal. But light cannot be held. It must move or it ceases to be light. Some claim the final keeper, in his desperation, sealed himself within the mirror chamber, hoping his reflection would outlast the dawn. But the reflection, too, moved on. The traveler sits in the emptied glow, dust motes turning to stars around him. He understands now, the observatory was not built to capture dawn. It was built to learn how to let it go. The mountain sighs, the light fades, the last beam lingers like a farewell across his face before dissolving into morning. Perhaps eternity is not the absence of change, but the endless return of light we never managed to hold. And so the traveler returns, to the desert, to the altars, to the sound of wind that began it all. The stones stand as they did, unchanged, though the air around them feels older, wiser, fuller. The horizon burns faintly gold, the same color as memory. It is said the wind has no memory, yet here it does. It moves through the ruins as if gathering names, of cities drowned, of stars forgotten, of prayers that never found their sky. Each place the traveler has seen hums faintly within it. The Echo Library, the moonlit city, the choir of stones, the temple of breath, the crater of silence. The wind carries them all, weaving them together into a single endless chant. He stands at the altar where it began, and the air bends around him. For a moment, the sound of the wind changes, layered, tonal, almost human. It is the same language carved into every gate and stone, spoken now by the sky itself. Perhaps this was the purpose of the sky priests. Not to summon voices from beyond, but to teach the world how to listen to its own. The traveler closes his eyes. The sound grows softer, spreading outward, carrying the memory of all things.